Traveler was the first sci-fi role-playing game that I was aware of. It had the best character creation system for two reasons. One, it was incredibly long and complicated. But the other thing that's fantastic about the character creation system is that you can die. So
while creating your character, you can die?
Before you actually even sit down with your GM, okay. No, sorry, that guy died. He was in flight training and he died.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Geek Peek content creator interview. Cody here. With me is the fantastic Bill Rehor of Beadle Grimm. Lovely to have you here on the channel. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We were just talking about, depending on how this gets edited, we were just talking about Dungeons & Dragons because Beadle Grimm is a fantastic company that does a lot of third-party peripherals for the modules that are already out for Dungeons & Dragons. Before we get into that, I would like to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
So you've been around the scene for quite some time. I know Beadle Grimm was founded in 2017, but what was your founding, as it were? Like, what got you into D&D or TTRPGs originally?
It was my I'll give two answers to that. The first part of it I'll blame on my mother and father. My mother was a librarian, and she really pushed us. We were both, my brother and I were both very avid readers anyway. And she kind of pushed us towards what she considered to be, more meaningful and well-written books than what our peers were reading at the time. And so we got introduced to Tolkien at a very early age.
Yeah, of course.
And that's my mom's fault. And then after that, and I really wish I could ask him. Unfortunately, he passed away. But ask him where he got the idea. But my father got lead miniatures from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and he was a very talented painter and hand painted all of these miniatures and did an entire set for my brother and an entire set for myself. So that really got us into the idea of, playing out our own stories in fantasy settings. And then when the first D&D set came out, my brother's 3 years older, and Charlie, who is also one of the founding members of Beadle Grimm's. And so he got the starter set and ran me through In Search of the Unknown as my very first experience. And I so vividly remember going down that first hallway and the alcoves on the sides with the magic mouths in them warning you to turn back. And then for whatever reason, the thing that is always like the moment that crystallized for me of, oh crap, I really want, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
I don't, we're not like monetized, but okay. If we need to, we can just edit it out. We can leave
sure.
it.
Okay. So, Oh, fuck, this is what I want to do. It was, you get to this first intersection, and the last adventuring party who tried to go through this dungeon is all sprawled out dead on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought that was such an evocative notion, and like it made the whole thing feel real and lived in, and just really roped me into this story of what is the past of this thing as much as what is going to be the future of this thing. And anyway, just really, really fired up my imagination. And Charlie and I played for years after that. And then I started DMing my friend group in Traveler, if you have any knowledge or memory of that old song.
That one I'm not familiar with, unfortunately.
Well, Traveler was a sci-fi, the first sci-fi role-playing game that I was aware of. It's sort of a flawed system, but if you find anybody who played it, what I guarantee they will tell you is that it had the best character creation system ever created. For two reasons. One, it was incredibly long and complicated, so you could spend hours on your own just going through all of these flow tables of I do this, and then I do this, and then I chose this, and then I went to here. But the other thing that's fantastic about the character creation system is that you can die. So
while creating your character, you can die.
Before you actually even sit down with your GM.
Okay.
No, sorry, that guy died. He was in flight training and he died. Start over. Wonderful system. So I GM my friend group in that for a long time. Did some D&D, did some Cthulhu, and my brother Charlie's group was very active. And actually, the group that he played D&D with in high school, we still get together on Sunday mornings and play. And the guy who was such a great DM for us, Steve Holmes, in high school, who was kind of like my sort of idol of how to write and run adventures, and was the only person I knew who was actually completely writing their own content all the time.
Yeah.
And he's still running our games on Sundays, and that's a lot of fun. So that was that. And then this is such a longer answer than you wanted.
No, it's absolutely fine with me.
All right, good. So in college, I didn't really have anybody to play role-playing games with, and it kind of got put aside for a while. And then I went to acting school in New York, where I was in the same class as John Cipollini and Paul Shapiro and Matt Lillard, who were are now the other members of Beadle Grimm's.
Yeah.
And we all became friends, and I remember we were all watching the Super Bowl, one of the Super Bowls where the Buffalo Bills lost, and there's so many it's hard to pin it down. But and we started talking about it, and Matt mentioned that John had a copy of the Player's Handbook in his bookcase in their apartment, and we all started talking and realized that we had all played at different parts of our lives. And by the end of the night, one of us had the keys to the Circle in the Square theater on Broadway where our classes were. So we went over there, broke into Circle in the Square, set up a table in the lobby of this Broadway theater, and played D&D in there until 3 a.m.
That is an amazing story.
Yeah.
And they need to film it and show it every Christmas. That's such an awesome setup. And then now we do this, but that's such an incredible founding of not just friendship, but then the future of this company and things you're doing now. That's a really, really cool way. I read a book that my cousin's dad had and then forgot about D&D for 15 years, and then I met a friend at work, and that's how I started. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I like best about that story, other than the obvious of, that it's sort of the founding of this company, is, it's a great demonstration of the bonds that these kinds of games can form for you in life. Because I had a lot of friends in New York, and the only ones that I'm still really connected to are the people that I play games with. And that's not a coincidence. It's a very strong sort of social bond, and as you get later in life, you start to find that you need excuses to get together because you all have lives, and your lives are complicated and deep, and you have commitments of your own, and when you don't have those kinds of things that draw you all together in very specific times in very specific ways, that you do tend to drift apart. So yeah, if for no other reason, just for people who are sort of thinking about playing these games and wondering what it might bring for them, that I would hold that up as it almost doesn't matter what you're doing at that table. What matters is that it's bringing you together with people that you really enjoy the company of, and just giving you an excuse to do it. And after that, who really cares?
Yeah, I was not expecting us to get that deep less than 15 minutes into the interview, but it's a good point. We all, everybody makes the joke about how it's hard to make friends as an adult in your 30s, 40s, whatever. And it is, like you said, you have, your own life, a full-time job, if you have kids and a family, time gets like less and less because you have more stuff to do. But yeah, I have a game that my partner and we play every 2 weeks here at home, and it's just like making those connections and keeping them going. It does make it easier. Like, yeah, we could go out for dinner or we could go to a bar or whatever, but having something specific to do every 2 weeks or however often you can play,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that's a big thing as an adult to make sure you maintain some semblance of like a social life, even if it is just sitting in a chair in comfy pajamas, rolling dice and beating up goblins for a couple hours.
Absolutely.
That first game you played, you said that was in the original version of D&D?
Yeah, it's funny. It's that's my memory of it. And if somebody wants to, jump in and tell me I'm remembering it wrong, but my memory is that we had it's the full size box. I know that smaller size box for those smaller size books, and we did have that eventually. I think we actually got it later. I think that's probably why some of this stuff mixes up in my head. But after we got that sort of starter set, that full-size starter set that had In Search of the Unknown and the basic rules, then of course once we got hungry for it, we started just sort of raiding the hobby store every couple of weeks, and anything they had that said D&D on it we would buy. So we didn't necessarily get everything exactly in the order it came out, but that's
Yeah, for sure. I think the first books I read, like I don't remember release years for anything, but I think the first books that I was looking through and making characters was a D&D stuff, but then I don't think I actually played any D&D until like 3.5. Completely skipped 4th edition because like that was when I was trying to finish college and start like work and things like that, and then into 5th edition. So I have no idea what edition those adventures were in, but do you remember that character?
No, I don't, honestly. But what I do remember is that in those days it was very common that you would run multiple characters.
Okay.
So in the early games we would play, I would have 3 characters, and if you read those early modules, and we'll get to this eventually, I imagine, but I've been reading those early modules a lot right now because we're working on this Quest from the Infinite Staircase box set that is the D&D release later this year, which is sort of updated versions of 6 of these old modules that I grew up with.
Okay.
So I've been going back and rereading those things and realized that yeah, that's actually in there, that they recommend a party of like 12 adventurers for these things. They're meant to be freaking armies.
Yeah. Wow. That's a big difference between older editions and now, where based by like level 4 or 5, you're a demigod. You can deal all this massive damage, take all this massive damage. Yeah. That's interesting. I never knew that about some of the older editions.
Yeah, if you had a table of 4 people, you'd each be running 2 or 3 or 4 guys, and I think that's actually why, or part of why, those old games were a lot more lethal. It was a little more comfortable to kill off player characters when you had 3 guys,
Okay.
Yeah,
it's almost like expected to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And all those guys, Gary Gygax, and that came over from war games where death was considered pretty normal. So.
Yeah, it was just part of doing business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned Traveler, and you mentioned I believe you mentioned Call of Cthulhu as well.
Yeah.
Which I'm a huge fan of. I got addicted to Call of Cthulhu in 2020 hardcore. What are some of your other like systems that you like to play in outside of Dungeons and Dragons?
That's a good question. I mean, the first answer is I don't get to play as often as I'd like anymore, because generally speaking, when we're all getting together, we're working. I've been playing a lot of Candela Obscura recently.
Nice, yeah.
Which is, I would say, sort of Cthulhu adjacent, but has a lot of really interesting things that are unique to it, and a very interesting system that I'm finding very interesting. Trying to think of what else. What else I'm looking back at? if anything else rings a bell right now.
Is that a dog bed?
It is a dog bed. I have 2 large dogs, and they're banned because if they're in here, they do nothing but bother me. Most of the time, they're in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really all I've been playing recently. I would love to play more. Pathfinder. I do get to play. We played that a lot a few years ago, and I still get to play that every now and again. And I love that system. You know, a big bulk of my D&D period when we were playing really intensely in New York was all 3 and 3.5, which is, you know, what Pathfinder is most closely related to. So
yeah,
so really enjoy Pathfinder, and yeah.
You mentioned again the playing in New York with that group of friends that you made. And those are the core founders of Beadle and Grimm, which, like I mentioned, was founded in 2017.
Yeah.
What made the leap from friends to table friends and then to like business partners and running this company together? Like, what was the founding of Beadle and Grimm like?
Yeah. So we were all, you know, we're all creative types. 4 of the 5 of us met at theater school. My brother at that time was in a graduate writing program in New Orleans. And then, you know, other than Matthew, obviously, we all kind of got into more traditional corporate jobs and worked in those fields and developed a lot of skills in those fields. But we always were looking for things to collaborate on. Charlie and I have written things together. I wrote a screenplay that Matt ended up starring in a film, and that's always been sort of a dream of ours, is to find ways of working together at various times and collaborating, because we just love each other and love each other creative in that creative space and the way that we all work together, and we've got a great shorthand with each other and a great level of mutual respect, which is incredibly important with a creative process. But then, so we had been talking about it for a while, and then Matt got invited to one of the early streaming events that WotC did, Wizards of the Coast did, in Seattle, which I believe was for Tomb of Annihilation.
Okay.
He did a big streaming event there. And he got invited up there, and we had been talking about trying to figure out something around D&D for a while. And so we all decided to go and just kind of spend the weekend up there talking about this idea. And the sort of epiphany moment for us was, and I'm sorry that my answers are so long. So Matt had directed a small film called Fat Kid Rules the World, which is a great indie film. I recommend it to everybody. It's a really beautiful little movie. But the music for that film was done by Pearl Jam's guitarist Mike McCready, who I'm a huge fan of. So when they were trying to raise money for distribution for that film, they did a Kickstarter, and Mike McCready donated some autographed Pearl Jam stuff for the Kickstarter. And one of them, and I have it here somewhere, is one of these big box sets. So
okay.
This is
like the whole discography.
Yeah, it's my autographed Mike McCready Pearl Jam set, right? So
yeah,
big box set, few $100s. Not for everybody. It's a collector's edition. It's for people who are really passionate about this particular band, and lots of bands have this thing, and it's very common in music. And we started talking about that and realizing that at that time there was no equivalent product for gamers. Everything was, for the sort of everything seemed to be sort of aimed at the mass market, and sort of at one sort of flat price tier that people were expecting someone to pay for their hobby.
Yeah.
But we were the really intense, passionate kind of players when we were playing. We were the kind of people who made props and would write letters to the characters to prep them for the adventure, and that kind of stuff. And we felt like there would be an interest level in this, especially with people who are getting into adulthood. And when you're a teenager, you have more time than you have money, and so you have lots of free time to do all this kind of stuff, and burn the corners on your little note, and do whatever it is that you want to try to make it this.
Soak it in tea oil and put it in the oven for a couple hours. Yeah,
we've all been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, back to Steve Holmes, my brother's DM in high school. He was big on creating these massive 3D battle maps and things in his house, and so that kind of stuff, is when you have more time than money, you can kind of do it yourself. When you get into adulthood and maybe you have more money than time, there's an appeal to having somebody else do that stuff for you.
Yeah.
So that was sort of our pitch, when that sort of finally coalesced for us and we walked that into WotC, that was sort of our pitch. And it was really fortuitous, because one of the things that they were realizing as 5e was starting to really catch on and grow was that there's no limit to the number of people who want to play games.
Yeah.
The limit for D&D is the number of people who have the courage to DM a game. Because it's intimidating. It takes a lot of preparation.
Yeah, it does.
There's this whole sort of hosting anxiety thing of, am I giving everybody, what they want? Are everybody having a good time? Did I do this right? And so, a lot of the focus of these boxes for us is, how can we make the DM's job easier? How can we make them look really good? How can we make them make it easier for them to give their players a great time? How can we shorten their prep? Help them understand the adventure a lot easier, give them quick access stuff. So when the characters ask you some weird question about an NPC that was 3 sessions ago, you've got a little paragraph on him right there on your custom DM screen, so you can look at it and go, oh yeah, that guy, he was that. And that makes you look good. It makes the game go better. It makes the NPC's experience better, or the PC's experience better. It's just better for everybody. So that was sort of the guiding principle of how we came in and how we started making those big box sets you can see up on the top of my bookshelf there. And we've kind of gone from there, and we're starting to branch out a little bit more into player facing products, and trying to accommodate lower price tiers and try to give people the same kind of experience, even if they aren't able to spend $500 on a platinum edition, that we can do a silver edition that is sub 200, and hopefully just bring more people into the game and give more people a great experience at their table. So
and I'm a customer. I bought the silver edition of Descent into Avernus to run for some friends, and I really like. I think overall the whole concept is incredible. The best part, I think, is being able to break up the book into smaller booklets.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like you said, you don't have to flip through 700 pages one way or the other. Having the NPC stat block cards, just hang them on your DM screen.
Good.
At that point, I was going to a friend's house to DM at their place because they had all the miniatures. I had the module, they had the miniatures. So instead of hauling all the stuff back and forth, I could just take a little messenger bag with 2 or 3 booklets in it and a couple of stat block sheets, and just run the game there. And then when they first made it, spoiler, when they descended into Avernus, and they got their first soul coin. It is right there in the title. But when they got their first soul coin, and I whip out this heavy hunk of metal, an actual soul coin, and I toss it on the table. They lost their minds at how cool it was to actually have a physical prop that their characters also had.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. I was that was the first box where I was the lead project manager on.
Really?
So,
oh, hey, well done. That was, I mean,
a particular point of pride for me. So thank you for picking that one out.
Yeah, I was gonna like have it like just over my shoulder, but I moved last year and I'm still in the process of unpacking, so that one hasn't made it out of the garage yet.
No, it looks like your cat has taken up the valuable real estate in your room.
Oh yeah, he's back there snoozing away.
Yeah.
He might make an appearance at some point.
Yeah, my big one is sitting right next to me or right off camera. He's not into showing himself.
I did an interview a few months ago, and halfway through the interview, the guest cat like walked behind him, so like he was in the shot for a little bit. Very cute.
Nice.
You were mentioning being the project lead for Descent into Avernus.
Yeah.
One of the emails back and forth, somebody mentioned that you're the project lead on the upcoming project. Is that the Quest of the Infinite Staircase you mentioned?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's the one we're working on right now. So.
And you said that's like a remastering of older modules and adventures
if you've ever read Tales from the Yawning Portal or Saltmarsh, those are similar products where they're kind of going back to older adventures and updating them for 5e and modernizing them and they do a great job of that. They're really seamless and run really well. You'd never know that they were old modules with the work that they do on them. So that's really exciting. One of the 6 in there was my all-time favorite growing up, which is called Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. If you don't know that one, I will just say it's the one where your players end up searching a spaceship. And it is so hilarious and fun and, cause crazy inventive. And just one of the things that I really loved about that experience of getting into D&D was watching when they would just go off in some crazy direction that you never expected. And, yeah. So that one holds a special place in my heart. So I really wanted to be the lead on this one because it's I'm so passionate about that one in particular and that whole period in general of that sort of late 70s to 80s period of modules that were so meaningful to me. And I'm just excited that new generations are going to get a chance to play through them because they're pretty cool.
I'm currently running a game for my partner and our kids. It's Ghost of Saltmarsh. Okay. And so we're a mixed family, so it's her son and then my son, so I've played D&D with my son for a little bit, but then we started playing a game together and we all moved in together.
Great.
And like when they first start exploring this house and it's getting all spooky and they find this guy and it's just like there's something about watching children play through D&D that they're the best actors. Like, I don't need Academy Award winners at my table. I want kids because I introduced a scary monster and they were legitimately scared for a few minutes as this monster like storms into the room and starts attacking them. I was like, this is why D&D, like it works. And it was just a fun time. And now every other weekend they're like, hey, Dad, can we play D&D some more? Can we play some more D&D? I was like, yes, absolutely, we can. Let's do that right now.
Yeah, good for you. Good. That's always the right answer.
Yeah. With this, like the older stuff being integrated into like 5th edition, what level of like creative freedom and control do you guys have for not just like redesigning stuff? Obviously, like updating a monster isn't that big of a deal, but what do you get to have your actual hands on as far as like this is what goes into the box that the player is going to get?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of updating the actual adventure, that's all WotC's project. So for us, we're getting, a fully realized and completed 5e version of this Quest for the Infinite Staircase book. So for us, the approach is very similar to any other box we would do, and our approach is we all read it, and we make sort of crazy wish lists of all of the stuff that we think, because we've all DM'd at different points in our lives, so we can all look at these things and think, if I was a DM, what would be the amazing thing that I would want in this thing? And we really try to think of it that way, not in terms of what would make the box sell or what would be the most impressive, but we're really trying to think about it in terms of what is going to be the most useful.
Okay. What's the most useful, makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we kind of throw all that up against the wall, and then we try to sort of winnow that down into something that makes sense for whatever kind of box we're doing, whatever level of box that we're doing at that point. But so with this one, because we all knew some of the adventures already, we kind of came in with ideas about things that we would want. But some of those things really changed over the course of it when we started reading them, because we weren't remembering them right, or just, things had changed in the text, or we came up with even better ideas from going through it. So it's a really fun process. It's a little painful because you always end up having to leave stuff out that you really wanted to do.
You start putting everything in there, it's going to be $4,000 for this box set.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You get the actual sun sword from Curse of Strahd. I can't put an actual sword in the box, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's the triple platinum version that's in some storage locker in East Los Angeles that you get for $2,000 and have to haul out in a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll do that sometime.
So we've talked about a lot about the D&D stuff. You mentioned doing some of the Pathfinder stuff.
Yep.
You have done a little bit of things for Magic the Gathering as well.
Yep.
I was looking through the site, and I apologize if I missed this. Do you guys have any of your own modules on there that you've put out, or if not, are there plans for that?
That's an excellent question. Not as of yet. We do a lot of writing, but as of right now, the writing that we do is going into the boxes as bonus encounters. So all of our boxes have some adventure content in them. Some of it is longer than others, depending on again, just trying to serve the product. I do recall those in Descent into Avernus. There were 3 or 4 it was almost like a front and back paper side quest. It's like a little couple of pages. If your players get stuck, or it's been 2 sessions since they fought anything, and you're like, oh my god, I just have to give them something to fight. Yeah, you just throw these little things in there. They're sort of meant to have a lot of flexibility about where you throw them into an adventure. And then for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which is not really an adventure, it's it's a setting book. That one we had a little bit more latitude, where we wrote some longer pieces that really allowed players, because that Van Richten's Guide is it's a bunch of these different sort of pocket universes. Yeah, all the different domains of dread and stuff. Exactly. Okay. All domains of dread from 2E. So we wanted to give people some adventure content for a number of those different domains that they could, so they, if you read a domain and you were like, oh my god, this is so cool, I just want, we'd give you a one shot to kind of run in that location. Okay. So that one had a little bit more content than some of the others. We really enjoy doing that. We're doing a lot of writing this year for a couple of non-D&D projects that I can't actually speak about yet, but dang it. Yeah, I was hoping for a spoiler. Okay. Well, I'll give you one little spoiler. Yes, please. So 2 of them are non-D&D projects, and again, I can't speak about that, but those are going to be big writing projects, and that's really exciting for us because we're finally sort of we're creating our own book from scratch, rather than just sort of additive stuff. But the other writing project we're doing right now, and we can transition into this if you want, but so we have a TV show called Faster Purple Worm Kill Kill. Literally, my next questions were going to be about that. Good. All right. See, we're all pros, man. We've been doing this forever. It's fine. We got it.
Yeah.
So we are actually writing a book of adventures so you can run a Faster Purple Worm Kill game at home,
Yes.
and that it sounds normal if you don't know what I'm talking about, and then when we explain the game, you're gonna go, what the heck? But it's a lot of fun. It's really, really fun. We're having a fun time writing it. We're bringing in a bunch of the DMs from the show to write out the adventures that they ran on the show, and then some brand new stuff as well that wasn't in season 1. So very, very excited about that. So now that I've transitioned, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, that was absolutely seamless, and we planned that from the beginning. Don't ask us any more questions.
It's crazy.
The Faster Purple Worm Kill on
Yes.
Amazon Freevee and Plex.
Yeah,
It's a completely bonkers, hilarious idea, pitting 4 level 1 players against like these epic level monsters. How did that originally form?
you know, again, because we all have acting backgrounds, and obviously Matt is a very accomplished actor, and we always looked at the streaming live play sort of world, the with the Critical Roles and Glass Cannons and Dimension 20s, and some of these groups that are really committed to it, and it always seemed interesting to us, and it's certainly a lot of fun, and we do guest on other people's shows from time to time. But when we were thinking about how we could be different and what would really speak to us, the number one thing that we kept coming back to is that it's very, very hard to create entertainment content that goes on for 3 hours at a time. That's not the way that most people digest content. Like,
Yeah,
we're
that's
used
very
to
true.
half-hour sitcoms, hour-long show, dramas, or at the most a 2-hour, 2.5-hour movie. Like, it's asking a lot, I think, and there are some groups that do it exceptionally well, and I'm in awe of that. But I do think it's a very tough hill to climb, and it just doesn't really fit with our personalities. And we kept thinking, well, all right, well, how could you create something that is D&D and gives people a real authentic experience of watching D&D, but is only an hour long? And the answer that we came up with was, well, what if we just kill them? And so
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so we kind of look at it as like it's like the CSI of Dungeons and Dragons, because it's every episode is a standalone episode. You don't have to have seen the one before. It's not going to lead you into the one after. It is all by itself. It's got its own thing, its own story, its own arc, its own beginning, middle, and end. And by the end of it, everybody's dead, and you will never hear from those people again. And the next one, you start off with a new group.
It's a procedural D&D show.
Exactly,
Is
it's a
interesting.
procedural.
Yeah.
So listen, it's what I will always say about it is that to me it is it's a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons, because everybody who's there is there because they love it, they're passionate about it, and they're having a great time. And it's a very easy way for people to jump in, to know that they don't have to have a lot of commitment, because everybody's running a first level character. There's not like these massively powerful characters running spreadsheets worth of
Yeah, there's no subclasses, there's no high level spells, no magic weapons. Yeah.
Right. It's so simple, and it also, I think, for me at least, it's a demonstration of something that I really believe, which is that there are an infinite number of ways to play D&D. They're all right. And if it's you getting around a table and laughing a lot, then you're doing it right. And to show people a version of it where everybody dies and you still have a great time, and it's still meaningful and fun and still really feels like a genuine game of Dungeons and Dragons, hopefully that just opens people's minds a little bit about, heck, I can do anything I want at that table. It can include anybody, it can go anywhere, and and that to us is the goal. And when Gary Gygax put out that adventure that made us all wander into a spaceship, that's, I think I'd like to think that's what he was going for, to just say there's no limits on this thing. It's just for fun. So do whatever you want. So
I take it you're one of the people that embrace the popularity of D&D over the last couple of years then? I know that
100%.
Nerds, as for the most nerds that I'm aware of, are very welcoming and compassionate to new people, but there are some gatekeepers in the community. But you are, like I said, you're one of the ones that embrace the popularity. Like, you're not upset because Stranger Things made D&D popular.
Oh, God, no.
Embrace it because it brings more people in.
100%. Listen, I grew up in a period of time where if I wore a D&D shirt to high school, I would have gotten beaten up. And that sucks. That's
beaten up, the whole satanic panic from the 80s.
Absolutely. I was in the middle of that. Tom Hanks running around the sewers getting chased by the police. That's a Mazes and Monsters reference for those of you who even want to Google that one. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, there is nothing worse in any part of life than having to hide the thing that you love. And I realize that other people have much bigger challenges with that than I do. But growing up as a big fan of D&D and not being able to talk about D&D sucks. Nobody should have to do that. Yeah. So the fact that it is in popular culture and that, you can talk about it and wear a t-shirt and love it in public, 100%, more the better. Like, yeah, absolutely. Why on earth would we want to keep this as a dirty secret? Like, that's horrible.
I never understood that. People try to equate it to, like, if it's my thing, then I have the power. But, like, if it's just you, who are you playing with?
Yeah, we're not all inviting ourselves to your table, bro.
Yeah.
Run it any way you like.
Exactly. I don't care if you got your box set from your dad's attic from 30 years ago or you bought it last week at Target. Let's play.
Zero difference. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. You mentioned stuff about season 1 of Faster Purple Worm. Yeah. Is there going to be a season 2?
God, I hope so, man. Yeah, I mean, that's always our hope. We're trying to figure that out right now. But what we're really transitioning to, which is a huge amount of fun, is we're starting to do a lot more live shows.
Okay.
So when we signed the deal to do that show, before we started filming, we went to a local bar in the Valley outside of I guess it's part of Los Angeles, called Guildhall. God bless them. Guildhall was happy to host us and let us do this weird little thing where we would do these live shows, and I think we had 6 people at the first show, and by the second or by the 6th one, we did 6 of them, and by the 6th week, we had the place absolutely packed, and nice. That was a really great, affirming experience, and we learned how important the audience was. We have a live studio audience on the TV show, and that became a really important part of it for us, and the interaction is important. The sort of improvisational nature of it is important. And we just, we're all natural performers and we really like being in front of audiences. And so we've been doing that a little bit more. We did some cons last year. We did the San Francisco Sketch Fest, the Sketch Comedy Festival in February this year. And now we're going to do a bunch of shows this year. We're doing a show at Comic-Con, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, and...
Ooh, I'll see you for that one.
Oh, good. And here in Los Angeles, we are going to start doing a series of shows at the Comedy Store, the very world famous comedy club on the Sunset Strip. So that's really exciting. So that's going to be a very, very cool thing that we'll start doing soon. And so we're just trying to kind of keep the idea alive and the brand alive and spread awareness of it through these live shows, and it's an absolute blast. And like I said, every every show's different. Every show has a different cast and is telling a different story. And
So the live shows are going to continue that formula of
yeah.
low level players, they all die, carry on next week.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the recipe. So that's what we're doing. I mean, the nice thing about the live shows is that we can let them go on a little bit longer if we want to. We can sometimes we go to a hour 15 minutes, but that's about it. We want to keep it really fast and fun and end in a substantially brutal way.
Yeah. The cast list for the first season is just like a who's who of TTRPG people. Is there anybody that surprised you? And then we kind of talked about this like with the emails. Like, I don't want you to like call anybody out, but is there anybody that really surprised you in the way that they played, or a very particularly wild, over the top moment that 5 years down the road you'll still be like, oh yeah, this thing happened and I was there for that and it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, God, I could call out 100 different things. I guess the first person I would want to mention is Nora Ibrahim, who was also we brought on as a producer in the show and was sort of our cast onboarder, because she has so much experience playing in live stream games. She was like the perfect person to sit down with every player beforehand and kind of prep them and get them ready. And, for some of the people... some of the people on that show aren't D&D people.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them are just like regular actors and stuff. Yeah.
And we thought that was really important because we really wanted to demonstrate that somebody, Michael Irby jumps to mind as somebody who really didn't know anything about D&D, but is a great actor and a really funny, friendly, wonderful human being. And Matt brought him on, and Nora just kind of got him up to speed, and he did a great job. But anyway, back to Nora. My point with her was that not only did she help us get things set up, she was a great performer in multiple episodes. She's done multiple live shows with us as well. And one of the most memorable things for me from the show is we were shooting every day. Multiple episodes a day. We shot 20 episodes in 7 days, so we were doing 2 or 3 episodes every day.
It's a very busy shooting crazy. Schedule. Yeah,
wonderful, super fun, really crazy. But the night before the last day, so we had 2 shows left, I think, and unfortunately the DM and one of the players had to drop out for completely reasonable reasons, and we love them both, but they just weren't able to do the show.
Yeah.
So at the very last minute, we found ourselves with no show, and we just had to kind of throw something together. And John Ciccolini, who's one of the partners, ran it, but Nora was one of the players and kind of took charge of getting the players up to speed and putting this thing together at the very last minute. And I think it's her best performance. It's the Spelljammer episode, if you're curious.
Nice.
And it's a fantastic, really, really fun episode, and everybody's just very loose and very comfortable. She's fantastic, and I give her a lot of credit for helping us pull that thing together in a very, very short period of time.
That's fantastic. I was just watching her in one of the new there was some Call of Cthulhu videos that came up just recently,
right,
where she plays in that. Kept by Mark Meir. Those were really good. Yeah, she's a fantastic performer. I look forward to seeing that those episodes.
Yeah.
The other project that is in the works at Beadle Grimm's is the Ring of Chaos board game.
Yeah.
How's that going? I'm super excited for that. I saw it on Kickstarter. I have a slight Kickstarter addiction, but I talked to my partner. I was like, all right, we'll get the base game. That's good enough for us. Super excited for that. I keep looking at the...
Is it though? Because I can show you the Platinum game right now.
Oh, don't. Yeah. I mean, if you got one handy, I'll take a look at it. But it's a really interesting concept where you're making temporary allegiances, and then eventually, but there's only one winner because you have to get that ring.
Yeah.
What was like some of the design process for that? Is this like an existing story that you had done previously in D&D you're just kind of like putting into a board game, or is this like an entirely original concept?
Yeah, it's an entirely original concept. We've been talking for a while about wanting to create our own thing, sort of from the ground up, and a board game seemed like um, a good access point for us for that. Rather than trying to create a whole new role playing game system or something like that, that
Yeah.
would be such a massive lift. And so this was actually an idea that kind of dawned on me. All of our families, the five founders, all have families and kids that are all sort of roughly the same ages. And for many years, we've all rented a house during the summer, just get one big house that we all kind of pile into with all of our kids, and we spend 5 or 7 days there, and we all just kind of hang out together, and it's a wonderful time. But games have always been a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just sort of constantly either a board game or a D&D game or something going on somewhere. And so there's a lot of Ticket to Ride and a lot of Pandemic and a lot of Bang and 5 or 6 other games that are sort of our mainstays. So, kind of coming out of that, I think there was, I was just trying to come up with something that would capture some of those elements, but would have its own unique thing. And so I just sort of spit out this sort of basic idea for a game and brought it to one of our quarterly offsites where the five of us just kind of get together and talk about big picture stuff. And we played through it a few times, and thankfully the other guys were really supportive of the idea and started chipping in other ideas and ways of developing it. And it just sort of grew and changed and morphed from there into what it is now, which is sort of a if I remember correctly, I think when it started, it was purely a card building game, and now it's sort of a hybrid of a card building game and a board game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly how it went, but anyway, that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
So it's been super fun. I think it's got some. We're a D&D company from our origin, and it's definitely got a lot of sort of old school fantasy DNA in it. And I think hopefully it will appeal to role-playing game players because you have sort of your party members and unique abilities for your parties and stuff, but is also much simpler, a much smaller commitment to obviously just to, sit down and play a board game for an hour or two.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's what makes like the board games more accessible, is that they're much more structured, and you have like a clear end point as well. Like you sit down for one D&D game, 4 years later you're still playing the same character.
Yeah.
Or if you're fighting a purple worm, you die in an hour. But
right.
Yeah, I think that's what makes board games. It makes it more accessible, just easier to digest. Even like the more complex ones that could be 3 to 4 hours, it still has like a clear end point.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to get into that kind of stuff a little bit more. That's more of game night stuff. You mentioned Magic the Gathering. One of the products we came out this year was a murder mystery game that is based in the world of Ravnica from Magic the Gathering. But it's not a card playing game. It's not, you don't have to have any knowledge of magic. It's more like one of those sort of, mystery party games where you're basically just, you can have 2 people or 10 people, and you just open it up and you're presented with a mystery and you're trying to solve it based on the evidence that's within that box. And those are really fun. I think they're great. What I love about those games is the variability of the number of players, that you can literally play it by yourself or you can play it with 8 or 10 people and it'll work just fine either way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've done both, and it's really they're really great, and I think that's what makes them popular. So that was a lot of fun to do for Magic. We're doing another one of those for a different IP that I can't quite talk about yet. But we're trying to get we're trying to get into that a little bit more of how can we give people a really a really cool experience without the sort of demands of the commitment of Descent into Avernus, and and hey, you're going to be playing this thing for the next 6 months and it's $500.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Trying to find ways of sort of transferring that same experience into something that has a lower barrier for entry and might be more interesting to more people. So that's the goal.
I like that. Branching out, expanding, like the dipping your toes in various different waters to see. Yeah, I like that. It's like we mentioned earlier, like the more people that like this thing, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So the name Beadle and Grimm
Yeah.
are two of the founding, like their founding people's characters at some point in the past.
That's right. So that game we were playing in New York, the very long campaign in the northern wastes of Greyhawk. I was playing a big, giant slain barbarian named Grimm, and Matthew was playing a multi-class thief magic user dwarf named Beadle.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a great adventure, and when we were just sort of going through character names, it really was just these are the two that sounded cool together, and
yeah,
so it's what we went with. But yeah. So that it's really fun to have that connection to those early games that we used to play, because that that really is what's responsible for where we are now. I mean, this thing started as sort of a midlife crisis hobby thing that we thought we'd be doing on the side.
I love that you have that on the website. Like, it started as a midlife crisis.
Oh, good. It's absolutely 100% true.
Yeah.
It really was just something for us to, to just feel fulfilled and maintain our connections with each other and have a creative outlet. But now, the four of us, not Matthew, obviously, but the other four of us have all quit our jobs and are working for Beadle and Grimm's full time. And that's an absolute blessing. And really, so, just all kinds of grateful for those games in New York that sort of propelled us off in this direction.
That's really a really incredible story.
Thanks.
It's all like that. It's all made up. I just made it up right now. Yeah.
Don't check it.
Fact checking. So, Bill, we're hitting the hour mark. We've talked about the past. We've talked about the present. We've touched on the future a little bit. Is there anything else you want to discuss as we're kind of wrapping this up? Is there any other projects you want to mention, even if you can't talk too much about it?
Well, I think, we all know that there's going to be a rules update for D&D coming at the end of the year. We're going to not finally, because I certainly wasn't dying for it or anything, but I think it's the first time in a good long time that the rules are going through some changes. I'm not privy to everything, but everything that I've seen so far is I think is really cool and really exciting. And we will have at least one product that's tied to those initial core rule books that we're starting to work on now. So that's really exciting. But yeah, outside of that, I think, we did the Kickstarter for Ring of Chaos, and a couple of these other projects that I can't quite talk about yet are going to be launching as Kickstarters, and that's sort of a new world for us, and we're very excited about it. It's a lot of fun. It's a very cool environment to be in, but we need people's support. So, I just ask for people to keep an eye out for those things and check us out when we start launching those campaigns, because it's going to be some really fun and different stuff. Hopefully, appeal to a lot of different people. So
that sounds awesome. Heck yeah!
Cool.
And we'll send me an email with those links, and we'll share them wherever we can on our side as well.
Oh, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Everybody, again, thank you for joining us. This has been Bill Rehor. I got it right. I'm Cody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.